Welcome back to Practically Political. It's great to have you with us. It is January 23rd, 2026, and we are pleased to welcome back Carrie Sheffield to our show. It's great to have you, but let's get right into it. I just want to start the show by reading something, which typically I don't really read from, but let's take a look at this. It says Trump had ordered his staff to send Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store and other European leaders the following letter. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, in caps, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be a predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago. But we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding. And now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. So, well, I guess you could say at least he said thank you. But Carrie, why don't we start? There's so much to go in there. But why don't we start with you, Carrie? What are your thoughts on that and just the whole, what some people would call Greenland debacle?
Well, I don't think it's a debacle because the United States got a lot of concessions out of that meeting. So I think when I saw that letter, I thought of it as a negotiating tactic, which is at this point, folks who don't know Trump, this is how he negotiates. So like, for example, I took negotiations at Harvard for my master's. And one of the things they talk about is the ZOPA, the zone of the possible agreement. Some people call it maybe the Overton window. When you're moving the Overton window, you're moving the goalpost, you're moving the ZOPA. Sometimes people take different tactics to do it. And this is one of the things he does, is that he moves the goalpost and then he gets an agreement that is much more aligned with his original vision. And so I think in the end, sure, maybe he doesn't use the fancy diplomat speak that is so common in Davos, but he's really concerned about security. He's really concerned about outcome more than intention. And I think NATO, at the end of the day, has had a lot of good intentions, but when you look at the outcome, it was thanks to Donald Trump that for the first time, as I understand it, since its founding in 1949, we finally have all of the countries paying their required GDP spend. And even NATO people have said this is because of Donald Trump.
Well, Carrie, I don't know.
Hold on, Ashley. Before you respond, let me just push back on that a little bit. And first of all, there is nothing that this so-called agreement is going to get, which we couldn't have already had before, short of taking over Greenland, which now he agreed, though I don't know how good his word is, that we're not going to do it by force. We had as many as 15 plus bases there. We now have one. That's just, you can put as many bases on there as you want. I think it's a terrible place to mine, but if you want to mine, if Ron Lauder and his cronies want to go in there and start mining, go for it. But so this so-called negotiation didn't achieve anything that we already had. So there was no upside, but there was a huge amount of downside. Not only does it make a mockery of the way we do business, but we're driving our allies into the arms of China. China is loving it. And we are just showing once again that the United States cannot be relied upon, that we're just one election away from having a system where anything can happen any day. And so I think the ramifications of this are terrible, and we achieve nothing except continuing to alienate our NATO allies. I just want to say that Denmark, who owns Greenland, as far as NATO doing nothing for the United States, let me remind everyone that the only time Article 5 has ever been invoked is when we were attacked, and the Danes lost more people per capita fighting with us in Afghanistan than we did. Go ahead, Ashley.
No, Dave, I completely agree with Carrie on this. I mean, the president, this is all about China and this is all about Russia. Now, is his negotiating style the best in the world? No, but it actually it actually gets, what do you mean China? China and Russia had their submarines right off the coast of Greenland that we have to remember. Yes, they did.
I'm talking
They
about
were,
trade. Canada is doing deals with Russia. With China.
well,
South
that's,
did their first
I,
negotiations. Japan, all these countries, because they
the only,
not a
the only,
reliable trading partner anymore.
the only thing that's going to do, Dave, is hurt Canada, because do they really want to be in the arms of China? I mean, I just
Well, they
think
can't
that
rely on us.
the thing is, though, is Europe has not been able to do anything in regards to what happens in Ukraine. I mean, what came out of Zelensky's mouth yesterday at Davos was, I think, the most important part of the meeting. The fact that he was saying that Europe isn't able to do anything, the fact that they're still buying all of Russian oil and not doing anything to help Ukraine. I mean, really, at the end of the day, they ask for our money, they ask for our troops, and they ask for our security. We have to remember, as America, we have the upper hand here because we are the ones that are always saving everyone else. And there is absolutely no way that I think that if you look at how people were securing Greenland, meaning Europe and the Danish, they have like 3 tanks. The Danish have 3 tanks. So if China and Russia are going to attack them, I mean, what are they going to be able to do? So maybe it's not the right negotiating. Maybe they're not going to attack them. We're going to take over them. I mean, this is why they have all the submarines there. I mean, like, no one's paying attention to this, and all of a sudden, the United States cares so much, like, because the president has done this on purpose, which is what he does. The reason that he's throwing this out there, and now all the liberals are like, oh my God, we care so much about Greenland and we care about the 57,000 people that live there. I mean, like, no one's even talked about this. I understand this goes back to Truman, but this is just like one of those things that I don't think anybody really takes seriously. And this is what he does brilliantly, is he throws everything and then he gets what he wants for the national security of our country. And I'm never going to back off on this. I don't
No,
really care
we already had everything we wanted. All we did was alienate our allies. But Kurt, what do you think?
I think that context is key, and a lot of sequencing gets lost in these conversations. And Donald Trump goes out there, makes an ass of himself. The markets tank, and then the next day, all of a sudden, it's no. I'm not talking about using the military force. No. We're not actually talking about. I could do it, but I'm not going to. Like, it's because the markets tanked that he retreated from what his bombastic and insane rhetoric was, because that's exactly the sequencing that happened. The only thing that's ever kept Donald Trump in check in any way is the activity of the market, because one of his favorite talking points is the economy is great because the market is great. Under my watch, the market has gone to heights that we've never seen before, and if that gets punctured in any way, he loses a lot of that armor that he has on the economy. And so every time that he goes too far and then the markets correct him, it's like, it's not a genius play. It's not some great chess man strategy going on. He just flies off the handle, shoots from the hip. Then when there's a real world reaction to it, he is forced to retreat from that. Like, Donald Trump walked away from Davos a laughing stock. We are a global laughing stock, and the only thing that Donald Trump has succeeded in doing is uniting everybody against us and showing that we are unstable partners. Our word is worth absolutely nothing right now, and that all of the rest of the world is better served making deals with more stable leadership rather than the United States of America.
And they shouldn't ask for any of our help. They should not. No one else then should ask for any of our help. If we're the laughing stock, then they should never ask for the rest of our money, our military, or anything else. It's done. I mean, I'm like actually MAGA right now on this. Like, I'm tired of people taking advantage of us.
And all that we've done is serve to strengthen Russia and China. Like, I mean, that is going to be the legacy of Donald Trump's foreign policy, is strengthening Russia and China, America's adversaries.
By the way, Kurt, we were like the laughing stock of the world when Joe Biden couldn't put a sentence together.
Oh my God, who gives a shit about Joe Biden? I'm just like, oh man, yeah, global instability and global, in order in American fascism. But yeah, let's talk about Joe Biden. I love this talking point from Republicans. Joe Biden, on one hand, is a dawdling fool who can't put a sentence straight. But in the same sentence, these same Republicans would have you believe that he was part of some massive conspiracy. Hunter Biden was profiting off the presidency, that he was subverting an election, interfering in the entire execution of the presidential election. Like, which one is it? Is Joe Biden incompetent and senile, or is he a global mastermind profiting off of foreign deals and upending the American election?
I'm going to turn it over to Carrie in a second, but I just want to remind everyone of one thing. This BS about how people have been taking advantage of us with the new world order, or the world order we have had for the last 80 years, okay, which has seen the fewest wars and the greatest prosperity. We have been the biggest beneficiary of that. In 1990, here's a stat for you. The European Union and the US had the same GDP. We are now 50% greater than they are. We have benefited more than anyone. And this idea that Trump is going to return us to these so-called spheres of influence, where we have the Western Hemisphere and China has their backyard and Russia has their backyard, that is an invitation to disaster for nuclear proliferation, for all kinds of stuff. And so this idea that we're doing so much for other people is just not true. But Carrie, let me let you.
Well, I just want to say one thing before Carrie goes: is would you rather live in the United States right now, or would you rather live in France? Go ahead, Carrie.
France.
Kurt, I don't want you to move, but then go to France. I love you too much.
The bottom line is that the fact that we even have to make that choice, and that some people are saying France, is a perfect example of how we have deteriorated in terms of our world standing and our reliability. And by the way, this is only going to go on for so long before Trump can't control the markets, before the bond market starts to crater, before people stop buying our debt because we're so unreliable. So they have to pay much higher interest rates. But Carrie, let me let you in here.
Well, we're in alignment on the debt. I agree with that. We have to get our spending under control. A big part of that is entitlements, which the Republicans need to get serious about, but that's a topic for a different show. I think as far as what you said about U.S., ceteris paribus, and then we shot up above Europe. If anything, to me, that is why we should have way more credibility with the situation, because, and this is why the president and Scott Bessent and J.D. Vance, they've gone to Europe and they've tried to help Europe see how they have become just, I don't know, somebody put sleeping dust in the eyes of Europeans, and they're
by lecturing them and belittling them. That's how it's going to work.
Well, we've done all the soft things, and that clearly didn't do enough for them. Their economies are anemic. Their unemployment, especially their youth unemployment in Spain. I mean, you had I would not want to live in Europe. Hell no. You think that's a place to start a business? No. This is it's a bunch of over-regulation. The energy appliances are it's a nanny state for most of it. I think Margaret Thatcher would have been damn proud of Donald Trump this week. I personally believe that, because she knows a threat when she sees it, and it's China and it's Russia and their aggression in the northern. It's just that whole area of it's a different situation, not only geopolitically between how much stronger Russia is compared to when China is now compared to when NATO began. And also what they're doing and how belligerent they've been in the South China Sea. I mean, that's just sort of like their playbook of how belligerent and how just they are so unabashed about what they are willing to do. And so why wouldn't they do it in Greenland? And same with Russia. I mean, just look at their buildup of their assets in the region. So I think the fact is maybe Trump didn't get every single thing he wanted, but what he did was he oriented the GPS of Europe to Greenland, and I think it was brilliant.
Well, I just have to say a couple of things. First of all, you mentioned China and Russia, and one of the things I can't understand is why the right-wing media is actually blaming these other countries because they're moving away from us and trying to get better trade deals with China. The most important thing when you trade with someone is reliability. That is more important even than democracy. So think about it from our allies' perspective. We've kicked sand in their face by imposing these tariffs. We've mocked Canada, saying it's going to be the 51st state. And then we're totally unreliable. The tariffs are on, they're off. So China, at least, yes, they have authoritarian government. They're reliable. What they're doing this month is what they're going to be doing next week. And as far as Russia goes, Trump is so enamored with Russia and with Putin that he doesn't understand how much Putin plays him and belittles him. And Steve Witkoff, that our supposed negotiator, it gets to the point where you wonder, okay, are they negotiating on what's best for the American people, or are they negotiating based on what's best for their own interests? So I thought anyone, even some of my pro-Trump people, thought that email was a disgrace, or that text message, sorry. And it's just typical of the way people think of us. We are a laughing stock in many ways. Ashley?
No, I just have so much to say, Dave. I mean, we're not a laughing stock. I actually think that we are more respected now than we have been in a long time. And I also think that listen, national security, if we if we even want to talk about what's happening with ICE, you know what came out and no liberal media covered it? That crime is down for first time as much as it has been from 150 years ago. You know why that is? Because of all the arrests, with what's happened with the border. It's because of kicking people out. It's because of getting people off the street. And like, no one's giving the president credit for actually doing that. All they're doing is they're worried about, the protesters and going into churches and like making their like
And the
5 minutes of
5-year-old being
fame.
used as bait.
Kurt, what are you?
Okay, but Kurt, we can talk about that, and we know that was going to happen.
It's
But
not
also
okay.
because the dad,
Like, I'm
it's
sorry, but
because the
also
dad
brushing
ran
it off,
away.
brushing
The
this stuff
dad
off
ran
of like,
away.
oh, it's this. There's always an answer when we use deplorable tactics. Well, I don't know why people can't just say, you know what? Yeah, it's executive overreach sometimes. They're going a little too far. We should rein that back. Like, I don't know why Republicans are allergic to saying the obvious when we see day in and day out excessive use of force. When we see day and at the same tactics deploy, under the guise of we're here to keep people safe, and yet the people who are really being hurt by this at times are American citizens, are people being disrupted in their own communities. Like, I can sit here and say there are times where I absolutely believe protesters go way too far and that they should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And I can also sit here and say there are times where law enforcement goes too far and they need to be better trained. They need to be about de-escalation. They need to be about using force as a last resort. Why can't both of those things be true?
It can. I think you're right there, Kurt. I think that's fair.
Let me give the administration credit here in a sense that J.D. Vance was just out in Minneapolis. And if you look, he to his credit, he pulled a 180 from what he was saying before. Now he's saying, well, maybe we need to meet in the middle. The bottom line is many people, and I put myself in this category, thought that the border was Biden's biggest failure. It was disgraceful. And Trump did an amazing job of closing the border and deporting a lot of the worst, as they would say. But he couldn't take a win. He can't take a win. And people didn't sign up for this. We've talked about this before. They didn't sign up for people with no criminal records and U.S. citizen kids being tackled in Home Depot or parking lots or shipped off to gulags without due process. I think the administration is realizing how much this is hurting their numbers. So I think that they were doing it because they actually care about people, but I think they're doing it for political reasons.
Because they're polling craters. I mean, it's like
polling reasons. Yeah.
It's like the majority of the American people absolutely agree that immigration enforcement should be done. I think everyone who has a working brain can tell you administrations both on the right and left have been egregiously failing when it comes to the border for a really, really, really long time. I think one of the reasons why Donald Trump got elected in 16 and in 24 was because of the border. But I also think that the images that we're seeing, the video clips that we're seeing, it's like you can't unsee those things, and most people are just uncomfortable with the sight and specter of some of the use of force that's going on, and that's hurting the president's numbers politically on his most potent political issue that he's had a huge advantage on for a really long time.
By the way, Kurt, let's talk about what happened in your old committee.
Oh, well, I want to let Carrie.
Oversight committee.
We'll get there. I'm going to let Carrie jump in here because I cut her off there before she got a chance to weigh in.
Well, so yeah, I just want to say though on the and I said this before, and I actually last month when we met, and then I checked the polling again, and nothing's really changed in the sense that I'm going to quote Joe Biden just because it's relevant when he would say, "Don't compare me to God Almighty, compare me to the alternative." the Democrats are 10 points behind approval of Trump and 12 points behind Trump and 10 points behind Republicans in Congress. So which again, Republicans, they should not take that for granted. This is an election year. They're going to have to really hit the pavement on affordability. I know before we started, there was an issue that I think we're going to talk about, which I think is a win for President Trump on affordability and helping families. It's the Trump accounts, and Ashley and I will be at an event with the Treasury Department on Wednesday to celebrate these Trump accounts. I think these are the kind of things that people can really relate to. So what it's going to do is give $1,000 to families for each child born between January 1st of last year and December 31st of 2028. And what's families can contribute up to $5,000 per year to their children's Trump account each year. And you can also have employers and charities contribute to a child's account. And the administration is estimating that by age 60, a single deposit can grow to nearly $500,000 with average returns and $1 million in a strong market, because these funds will be invested in a low risk or just sort of like a ETF kind of thing, like tracking the market. And we know compounded interest is powerful. So this is the kind of stuff that I think won Trump Pennsylvania, it won him Ohio. It's focused on bread and butter issues. It's helping families understand personal finance. And I personally think it's a great way to bring some solvency to retirement, because it's such a train wreck right now with Social Security.
And Carrie, that goes back to also the other topic, which actually the president's working with Elizabeth Warren on and other, pretty liberal Democrats, which is the 10% on credit cards. I mean, you've seen what Jamie Dimon, now the fight with the president and Jamie Dimon on. But you also have seen people like Capital One and Bank of America that have come out and said, like, maybe this does work. You're exactly right. That is that populist message. I mean, I think we could argue that the foreign affairs that he's been dealing with has not something that resonates as much with his base, right? I mean, I think I understand it from being a Bush Republican and just the security of the world, but that's not resonating with his base. But the Trump accounts, the credit cards, things like that is what will resonate. And it'll be just very interesting, because I remember when Biden was in, I would go hard after Biden on the border, but also I'd give him credit when credit's due. So it'll be interesting to see if someone's if like these Trump accounts, if they take off, like, why is that a bad thing? And politically, even though we all just bickered, can we get to a point where we can say, like, that's good, or the 10% credit card is good, interest rates. So, I mean, I just think that those are the things he needs to stick to. And you see that he's going to be on the road once a month from now to the election at least. And so,
I mean, I think
obviously,
the
Susie has him doing that.
the challenge he has is not whether or not this is good policy. I think most people would hear this, go, like, yeah, that's great. It's that he steps on his own message all the time with things like, I want to buy Greenland. I'm going to blockade Cuba. It's like you have things that you could talk about that are wins, that are potentially really politically popular, that address a lot of the core needs that you hear American people say they want to address by government. But he spends an inordinate amount of time talking about stuff that's not that. And then that's where it's like, this isn't the media's fault. This isn't like, mainstream media ignoring Trump accomplishments. It's that Donald Trump and his White House don't spend most of their time talking about their accomplishments.
And also, I think that if I were going to give and look, let me say one thing. He's our president. We all want him to succeed. And, as I said, it pains me.
Absolutely, Dave.
That he can't take a win on the border, because he did such a good job with the first stage of it, and he deserves credit. But as Kurt says, he's constantly stepping on his own message. But were I to give him one piece of advice, I would say, you know what? One of the biggest complaints people have against you, which is well-founded, is that you're a divider. You're not a uniter. Let's pick some issues you can work on. The one issue everyone agrees on, every governor from, the most liberal to the most conservative, social media, phones in schools. Everybody agrees on that, okay? Usurious credit card rates. Everybody agrees on that. There's a lot of issues, if you think about it, that we could unite the country on. And he would help not only get things passed, because in both of his administrations, his legislative accomplishments, other than, the big, whatever you want to call it, bill this year and that Tax Reform Act in 2017, that's it. I mean, it's meager at best. So this would be a chance to get stuff done that can really help the American people. But I want to move on